Hello again guys, welcome back to the channel. In today's video we are back in DCS, a sim which I don't frequent nearly enough, and we'll be taking a look at the freeware F-16I mod from LAHAK. As I mentioned, the mod itself is free, however it's heavily based around the F-16C Viper module for DCS, so you will need that if you do want to fly the F-16I. The F-16I Sufa, or Storm, is a modified variant of the F-16D Block 50 and 52 aircraft. The avionics and the weapon systems capability has been modified. The aircraft, as you can see, is fitted with a pair of removable conformal fuel tanks, increasing the F-16I's mission range and combat endurance at a very low cost in terms of drag. As you can see, the Sufa is also a multi-crew aircraft with the pilot sitting up the front and a weapons systems operator down the back. Of course, this added weight and complexity does mean that the F-16I is a little less manoeuvrable than some of its other F-16 counterparts. In order to try and mitigate the reduction in the F-16I's performance, the aircraft is fitted with the venerable Python 5 air-to-air missile. The Python 5, which you can see in front of you, is a highly manoeuvrable heat-seeking missile, and its rather outstanding manoeuvrability and performance more than makes up for any shortfalls in the F-16I's handling as a result of the added weight. As you can see, we are currently on the ground in our F-16I, and we're going to be departing single ship out towards our weapons testing range to test fire the Python 5 missile. We've already got an F-4 drone orbiting at the western range at an altitude of 25,000 feet. He'll be our target for the flight today. And fair warning ahead of time, we're not looking to do anything fancy once we get out to the weapons range. It is just a simple test launch of the missile. I think it's worth mentioning as well that DCS is not my natural domain, nor really is anything to do with military aviation, and I'm also still getting to grips with the F-16 module, so I'm sure there'll be more than a couple of things that we get wrong along the way. I'm sure I'll be using the wrong terminology left, right and centre. Please feel free to correct me if you do notice anything. I'm more than happy to learn as I go. Nonetheless, I hope the flight should be enjoyable. I've tried to operate the aircraft as accurately as I can, and hopefully we'll have some fun along the way. Again, the main aim of today's flight is to showcase the LAHAK F-16I module itself. Anyway guys, as always, I do hope you enjoy the video. If you do, please consider giving it a like and subscribing to the channel. If you have any comments or questions for me, you can leave those down in the comments below. We'll now jump into the cockpit of the F-16 Sufa and get the aircraft started up. So welcome to the cockpit of the F-16I. The Sufa, as I mentioned, makes complete use of the default F-16 in terms of its cockpit modelling, so everything you'll see here will be very familiar to you if you're a regular driver of the F-16. There is a little bit of Hebrew labelling throughout though, just to give the cockpit a bit more of an authentic feel. Anyway, running through our start checks, the main power switch can go to battery. We do have the flight control relay caution. Move that into the main power position. We'll get the radio over to backup for now. We'll turn that on to manual. And we'll tune up ground. That's the frequency of 250.5. We'll call ground, we'll request a startup clearance.
In field 1-1, request startup. In field 1-1, cleared for startup, wind 270 at 4 meters per second.
So we are cleared for the start. The EPU lights are out, park brake is on. Engine feed is set to normal. Air source is set to normal. Throttle is in the off position. Get the lights on. And for the Jfs Starter, we'll go to start 2. It's a pretty warm day outside and we're pretty high altitude, as you can see, around 2,500 feet. So just waiting for the run light to illuminate there on the JFS panel, which we now have. And the engine's spooling up. We're waiting to be above 20% on the RPM indicator there before we introduce fuel into the engine. And we are now above 20%, so we'll move the throttle into the idle detent. Just continuing to monitor the engine parameters as it spools up. So we have a Ryzen TIT. RPM's increasing. Pair of F5Es there, just departing off runway 27. Anyway, looks like we have a good start, all pressures checked. Temperatures and pressures look good, the engine cautions have extinguished. Double checking the air source is set to normal. Avionics power can come on. So we'll get the MMC on. Stations can go on. MFD on. And the UFC. Map's not required, GPS can come on. And the data link not required. We'll get the IRS aligning now, just to reduce the time here on the ground. Hardpoint power is not required. Flight control radar can come on. Radar can go to standby. Com and nav radios, so we'll come back to UFC. And we can turn off the standby radio for now. IRS is aligning. Mids can go to on. And we'll set transmit to link 16. IFF, that can go to normal. Standby attitude indicator, we'll uncage that. And that's now uncaged. Altimeter will set to elec. And we do have the correct QNH. Stores config, we'll leave the aircraft in Cat 1. We're pretty lightweight here, we don't have any external fuel tanks. I'm not entirely sure whether the conformal fuel tanks count or not as external tanks, but we'll assume not for the sake of today's video. Oxygen supply is on and set to normal. RWR power can come on. Countermeasures won't be required for the flight today. And we'll secure up the canopy. Always love closing the canopy in the F-16, it feels like some sort of a futuristic fighter. Anyway, we'll secure that. We should have secured the canopy before the start, but I like to leave it open so that we can hear the engine start. Anyway, canopy is secure. IRS, we'll just wait for that to count down to 10. It's already showing ready, but we might as well let it get as accurate as it can be. So there's 10, flashing ready. That can go into the nav position. Park brake can come off. Taxi light can come on. Nose wheel steering is on. Position lights are checked. And we'll get the HUD on. Now we'll just declutter that slightly. Master caution, we just have the ejection seat not armed. We'll arm that when we get to the runway, so we'll cancel that for now. We'll call up ground and we'll request a taxi.
In field 1-1, request taxi to runway. Field 1-1, clear to taxi to runway 27.
Okay, we are clear for the taxi. Park brake is off, so we'll come up on the thrusts. Nose wheel steering is engaged. And we're clear to taxi out for runway 27. Often forget just how awesome DCS looks at times. The lighting is really spectacular. Anyway, runway 27, so we'll taxi straight ahead, take the first right on the main taxiway, and then we'll taxi all the way down to the last intersection. We're not going to backtrack the runway today, just to save a little bit of taxi time in the video. We do have enough runway to get off from the intersection. It's all clear on the left. So as I say, just taxiing straight ahead, that'll take us all the way down to the intersection runway 27. We'll hold short there and carry out the rest of our pre-takeoff checks. So as you can see, we're just coming up to the holding point for the runway. That's just off at our 11 o'clock. So just coming off the thrust, letting the aircraft slow down off the brakes. I understand that the F-16 doesn't have the most beefy brakes in the world, so we'll try and avoid using them where we can. Same for the landing, I gather it's real world technique to use a bit of aero braking down to about 100 knots. So we'll try and remember to do that on the landing. Now we'll just get the aircraft right up to the holding point. I find otherwise the DCS air traffic system often refuses to give you a takeoff clearance unless you're bumped up right against the holding point line. Anyway, coming onto the brakes. And bring the aircraft to a stop. We'll just hold the aircraft on the brakes while we carry out the takeoff checks. So taxi light can come off. Position lights can go to steady. Pro peak can come on. Speed brakes are closed. Stores, double checking there, we are in the Cat 1 configuration. Run out can come on. Ejection seat is armed and the caution is out. And we are ready for the takeoff. So we'll call the tower.
In field 1-1, request takeoff. Enfield 1-1, you are cleared for takeoff when ready. Climb 300 at QFE 27.37.
So we are clear for the takeoff. I always find it a bit strange that there's no requirement to read anything back in DCS. Takes a bit of getting used to. Anyway, it's clear on final. We're cleared up to 1,000 feet, but we're going to climb straight up to flight level 250. So taxiing the aircraft onto the centre line. Fairly short runway here, particularly given that we've departed from the intersection. And again, we're quite high altitude, it's quite hot today as well. So we use full afterburner for the takeoff. I'm just going to get rid of the nose wheel steering straight away. We're not going to need that up to 70 knots. So coming up to 90%. Engine parameters look good, we'll come off the brakes. Moving the throttle all the way into the afterburner detent. Just keeping the aircraft on the runway centre line. And coming back on the stick. And we're up. Tap the brakes, gear can come up. And already up through 500 feet, we'll come on to our steer point heading. We'll leave the afterburners in all the way up to flight level 250, just to get us up to altitude as quick as we can, and to have a little bit of fun. Not much point flying an F-16 as opposed to an Airbus if you can't make some use of the afterburner. So we'll climb, maintaining a speed of around 400 knots. Already up through nearly 10,000 feet. You can just see the runway out behind us, and again, what a view. Such a stunning sim. So there goes 14,000 feet. We'll just pitch the nose down slightly to maintain that 400 knot climb speed. So the drone, as I say, it's out in the testing area, it's up at flight level 250, so we'll just climb straight up to meet him. Try and enjoy the scenery as well while we have a moment. And again, just continuing to pitch the nose down. Start reducing that rate of climb now. And already up through 25,000 feet. Absolutely amazing climb performance on the aircraft. There's 400 knots, so we'll come off the afterburner. Back to around 95% on the RPM. And we're in the cruise. So we're good on the heading, we'll set the heading bug. Just get ourselves back down to flight level 250. Pretty disappointing that I managed to fly through that. Should have anticipated that a little bit sooner. But again, the performance of this thing is somewhat more sprightly than what I'm used to, which is definitely where some of the fun comes from. Just pitch the nose down a little bit more just to get back down to our planned altitude a little bit more quickly. So there's 250, we'll go into heading select and get the autopilot on, come into altitude hold. We'll put the left MFD into soy and we'll just track out to about 80 miles on the range. Looks like we're already picking up our F4 there actually on the left hand MFD. Fairly sure that won't be the F5, so they should have been departing out to the southwest. See if we can't lock him up. Pretty long range still at the moment, but we'll try and track him. Anyway, we'll continue inbound towards the weapons testing range. As usual, we'll head outside the aircraft and take a little bit more of a look at the LAHAK F-16I. And I'll come back to you again once we're a little bit closer towards our F4 and ready to unleash our Python 5.
Despierta lo que cámbiale, a mí lo que hace esto es tanto bueno, ahora como quiero también.
Ya, que idiota.
¿Usted qué tomó? ¿Usted qué tomó? ¿Agitarlo por su cántame? Deja de ir.
קיבלנו זוג פנטומים ואני לא ידעתי. אבל זה כיף הספינה הזאת בלחיצה, זה נעים.
שם כך מעל הנ"צ, הוא נמצא ב-300, 6
הנה הוא מורח.
בדיוק, הוא מנסה לגרוע. קצת ימין שלך, תראה לנו. תקליט חוברת.
So welcome back. As you can see, we've got the F4 locked up quite nicely now on the FCR. We're also being picked up by his radar. Just showing him on the RWR there. Anyway, we're about 30 miles to run here inbound. We've got about 2 minutes till we're on his position. We'll just wait until we've closed to within about 20 miles and then we'll go into dogfight mode. Just coming up on the 20-mile position now. We'll make a slight heading adjustment as well. Once the aircraft's levelled out, we'll get the autopilot off. Just losing him there on the RWR as he turns away from us. And just coming to within 20 miles, the autopilot can come off. Turn to pick him up again on the HUD. So we'll go into dogfight mode. Have a good tone, we'll uncage the missile. I'll just reduce the tone slightly there just to save you from being deafened. So we have him locked up now with the Python 5. We'll continue to close inbound. Again, I'll just reduce that tone slightly more. So we'll just wait until we're within a decent range before we release the weapon. Master arm can come on. And again, we're not looking to achieve anything particularly amazing with the Python 5, it's really just a test of the weapon itself. Picking up the F4 again, he's turning inbound towards us at the moment. Still closing him down, he's within about 2.5 miles now. We'll unleash the Python 5. So off it goes. And splash. Get the afterburner in, we'll chase him down. master arm can come off again. So there he is. So a good hit there from a missile, as you'd expect. Really easy shot, particularly for something like a Python 5. Come out dogfight mode again. So he's hit the deck. I think that's time for us to head home. We'll have a little bit of fun on the way back. We'll fly low level. We'll set ourselves up to head inbound towards steering point 4 for now. And there's some pretty nice high terrain between us and our home base, so again we'll fly low level, we'll have some fun in and amongst the hills as we head home. Just come out there again on the radar range. Not that we really need it anymore.
Altitude. Altitude.
And you can see steer point 4 there on the map. We'll skip steer point 3, there's no need to fly the flight plan route here. Once again though, I tend to forget just how much fun DCS is. I mean, obviously this mission is pretty basic in nature, but it's still great fun. It's such a good sim. And if you do want to fly any fast jets, it's by far and away the best option. The aircraft is an absolute joy to fly, but so is the default F-16 of course, although I think LAHAK have made an effort to make the flight model feel a little bit different. The F-16I of course with the conformal tanks and the twin crew and various other modifications is a heavier aircraft than the standard F-16. So we've got about 2.5 minutes to run inbound towards waypoint 4 at the moment. We'll just continue to track low level inbound towards steer point 4 and then we'll head on towards home base. And once again we might as well enjoy some of the external views as we head inbound. I'll come back to you again when we're a little bit closer to home.
תרגיל כזה זה בסך הכל גם עבודה קשה, נכון?
כן, פעם אחת שאתה מתרגל, אנחנו בסך הכל, זה כבר הטיסה השנייה שלי ויש עוד אחת כזאת, ולפעמים אתה עושה עוד 2 כאלה, אתה עושה 3-4. בהתחלה זה מאמץ כזה לא קל, והמשך אתה פשוט מסתגל לזה.
שם כך מעל הנ"צ, הוא נמצא ב-300, 6
ויש לנו בבקשה את מיד ידו קצת ימין 5 מייל, קחת איתי ימינה.
So welcome back once again. As you can see we've just cleared the last of the significant terrain on our return leg. We've got about 10 miles to run inbound towards home base, so we'll call up tower, tell them we're inbound.
Infield 1-1, inbound. Infield 1-1, fly heading 119, port 17, QFE 27.37, runway 27, to pattern altitude.
So they're still using runway 27. We're not going to fly the overhead brake. Again, I'm not really familiar with it. I'm sure I'd just make a complete hash of it. Instead we'll come overhead the field, brake off for a bit of a left-hand downwind onto runway 27.
Infield 1-1, cleared for visual, contact tower.
Okay, it's cleared us for the approach. We'll call tower, request a landing.
Infield 1-1, request landing.
If memory serves me correctly, we don't usually get our landing clearance till short final and DCS, so we'll disregard the lack of response for now.
Altitude. Altitude.
So just coming overhead the field, we'll track outbound on a bit of a crosswind initially. And basically just follow the contours of the hills to put us on a left-hand downwind for runway 27. We'll come off the thrust. We'll use a bit of G as well just to bleed off some speed. And that puts us on a pretty decent left-hand downwind. We'll make a nice long final. Again, I'm not that familiar with the F-16 and indeed flying the fast jet, so we'll give ourselves plenty of time to get everything set up and stable. terms of our landing checks, the master arm is off, we'll get the landing light on. Rad out is on. And in terms of our fuel state, we've got about £2,800 worth of fuel on board left, so plenty for the arrival and the landing, and any go around should we need it. Anyway, I think that's long enough in terms of our downwind leg, so we'll bring the aircraft round onto final. Again, use a little bit of G to bleed off some speed as we do that. And just rolling out onto our heading for runway 27. A little bit out to the left of the centre line, so we'll correct that. And we'll just take some speed brake here, just to help the speed back. Once we're below 250 knots, we can take the gear down. So through 250 knots, gear down. And we have our 3 greens. Put the flight path vector on the touchdown zone, and we'll let the speed continue to bleed back until we're back within the bracket. So back on speed.
Enfield 1-1, check landing gear. Wind 270 at 4 meters per second. Runway 27.
And we are clear to land. The wind is straight down the runway, so no excuses. A little bit fast here at the moment. So coming off the thrust, holding the aircraft off. Just holds the nose up momentarily for a little bit of aero braking till we're through about 100 knots. And lowering the nose onto the brakes. We'll slow the aircraft down. We're going to have to turn around on the runway here and backtrack back towards the parking area. Get the nose wheel steering on. And just bring the aircraft down to around 10 knots before we make the turn.
1-1, taxi to parking area.
So we're clear to taxi to the parking area. The next exit on our left actually takes us into a different apron, so that's of no use to us. So as I say, we'll have to swing the aircraft around, just backtrack a short distance to take us back onto the main taxiway, which you can just see off at our 1 o'clock at the moment. Anyway, after landing checks, nose wheel steering is on, taxi light is on, we'll disarm the ejection seat, and we can cancel the caution. Just hold the checklist until we're clear of the runway. Focus our attention on the exit. So the ejection seat is disarmed, the rad out can come off. Get the FCR off as well. Just about to cross the main taxiway. All looking clear. Speed brakes are closed, pitot heat can come off. And we'll come back to flash on the position lights. A little bit surprised that we have flash on the ground and steady in the air. That may or may not be correct. It's per a guide I found online for the F-16. It's not a real world guide though. If anyone knows any different, please let me know, I'd be interested. Typically I would suspect you would have steady on the ground and flashing in the air, but there you go. Anyway, there's our fellow F-16I parked up. He didn't get to have any fun on the range today. just swing ourselves around back into our initial parking spot. No ground crew out at the moment to help us, they must all be having a cup of tea. Or whatever's appropriate in this part of the world. Anyway, feet on the brakes, park brake can come on. Get the taxi light off. And for the shutdown, we'll just work our way around the cockpit, turn off any unnecessary electrical systems before we shut the aircraft down. So we'll get the RWR off. We've already put the IFF to the off position. Avionics power can come off. Mids can go back to the off position. The INS can come off. And that should just about cover us, so we'll move the throttle back to the off position. Can open up the canopy. And that's us. So there you go guys, I hope you enjoyed our little demonstration of the LAHAK F-16I Sufa mod for DCS. Once again, you will need the F-16C Viper module for DCS if you want to try the F-16I for yourself, but the mod is otherwise completely free. I'll leave a link to the LAHAK Discord down in the video description below. LAHAK, of course, not only modelling the aircraft but the Python 5 missile as well, and I believe there are future plans to bring various other ordnance options to the aircraft, including the Spice 2000 bomb, as well as modelling the Weapons Systems Officer Station and providing multi-crew functionality to the aircraft. All in all, I really enjoyed my time out in the LAHAK mod. It's great fun and I really like the look of the F-16I. I think it looks quite hefty and menacing, and I would imagine if you have any more skills than I do that you could put the Python 5 missile to really good use as well. Thank you very much to LAHAK for producing the F-16I mod. As I always say, it's great to see developers putting in their own time and effort for the benefit of the community. And thank you very much to all of you for watching the video. I do hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, once again, if you would consider giving it a like and subscribing to the channel, that would be very much appreciated. If you have any comments or questions for me, you can leave those down in the comment section below, and I'll always do my best to answer them. And thank you, as ever, to my channel members and patrons. Your support is hugely appreciated. Hope everyone has a great day. Thank you very much for watching once again, and I will see you all again soon.